Beyond the stone walls and winding lanes of Gloucestershire, a royal life unfolds far from the cameras. Here at Gatcombe Park, horses graze where headlines fade, and two loyal dogs follow a princess through dew-kissed fields. This isn't Buckingham Palace. It's quieter, simpler, but no less regal. What kind of royal couple chooses country solitude over crown spotlight? Today, we step into their world. Before there was Gatcombe Park, before the privacy and the paddocks, there were two childhoods growing in entirely different orbits. One, shaped by royal duty from the very first breath. The other, forged by discipline, oceans, and the silent rhythm of the sea. So how did a princess and a navy officer, two souls from worlds apart, end up building a life in the quiet countryside? Let's begin with Timothy Laurence. Born in 1955, he wasn't raised with crowns or castles. His father was a commander in the Royal Navy. His childhood was a mosaic of uniforms, codes of conduct, and the scent of salt in the air. Timothy attended the prestigious New Beacon Preparatory School before earning a scholarship to Sevenoaks and then to the University of Durham. He studied geography, but his heart, even then, beat for the sea. It wasn't long before he followed in his father's footsteps, joining the Royal Navy. By his early 30s, Laurence had climbed the ranks with the quiet confidence of a man who didn't need to shout to lead. He was strategic, stoic, and respected. But fate, more often than not, has its own plans. In the mid-1980s, Timothy Laurence was appointed equerry to Queen Elizabeth II. This wasn't just an administrative title, it meant he was often at the Queen's side, organizing schedules, assisting on state visits, traveling aboard the royal yacht Britannia. It also meant that, inevitably, he crossed paths with Her Majesty's only daughter, Princess Anne. Born in 1950, she was unlike any other royal, sharp-tongued, fiercely independent, and often described as the hardest-working royal in the family. From a young age, Anne was drawn to horses, not pageantry. While her brothers navigated titles and headlines, Anne preferred the rush of cross-country rides, the discipline of dressage, and the quiet communication between rider and animal. By the 1970s, Anne had already made history. She became the first British royal to compete in the Olympics. Silver trophies lined her shelves, but she never sought the spotlight. And perhaps that's why she noticed Timothy, a man who, like her, valued substance over show. At the time, Anne was married to Captain Mark Phillips, an Olympic equestrian in his own right. But their marriage, though grand in photos, had grown strained behind palace doors. They lived separate lives, in separate wings, united only in public. And then came the letters. In 1989, the tabloids exploded with scandal. Private correspondence between Anne and Timothy had been leaked. They were deeply personal, tender, undeniably affectionate. The palace neither confirmed nor denied, but the truth had already broken free. In 1992, Anne officially divorced Mark Phillips. And in December of the same year, far from the grandeur of Westminster, she quietly married Timothy Laurence in the stone chapel of Crathie Kirk, near Balmoral. Only 30 guests attended. No tiaras, no televised fanfare. Why Scotland? Because at the time, the Church of England didn't allow divorced individuals to remarry in its sanctuaries. But in Scotland, traditions are different. And perhaps that suited Anne and Timothy just fine. Their wedding was intimate, intentional, a declaration of love on their own terms. And just like that, a new royal chapter began, not with royal trumpets, but with quiet conviction. So what happens when a princess trades palace ballrooms for muddy boots and stable aisles? When a naval officer learns to navigate not just seas, but the intricacies of royal life? You'll find the answers not in Buckingham Palace, but in a country estate nestled in Gloucestershire, where dogs bark, horses gallop, and the spotlight politely stays outside the gate. Because next, we head into the heart of their sanctuary, Gatcombe Park. So where do a royal rebel and a naval officer build their forever? Not in London, not in a castle, but in the rolling hills of Gloucestershire, at a 700-acre estate called Gatcombe Park. Gifted by Queen Elizabeth II as a wedding present to Anne in the late 1970s, Gatcombe isn't just a country house, it's a philosophy. Here, the lawns aren't manicured for display but worn by hooves. The air doesn't carry perfume but the scent of hay, leather, and damp earth. At first glance, the house itself appears rather modest by royal standards, a Georgian manor with classic symmetry, limestone walls, and ivy crawling across time-worn bricks. But what it lacks in glamour, it makes up for in soul. This is where dogs nap on antique rugs and old fireplaces crackle with quiet laughter. The furniture isn't just ornate, it's lived in. There are no golden thrones, only boot racks by the door, and family portraits nestled beside riding trophies. Outside, the estate comes alive. Gatcombe hosts annual equestrian events that draw global talent. Because this isn't just home for Anne, it's a working venue. Cross-country courses curve through meadows. Fences are tested by Olympic-level riders. And Anne? She's often spotted at the sidelines, hat low, boots muddy, clipboard in hand. And Timothy? While never loud in presence, he walks the grounds with quiet vigilance, observing, fixing, maintaining. He is the silent steward of their rural kingdom. Why does this place matter so much to them? Because here, they are more than titles. They are riders, dog lovers, caretakers of land and legacy. Gatcombe Park isn't a royal facade. It's a home built not on marble, but on shared values. And just a few miles away, by the sea, lies another home, one that reveals a different side of their lifestyle. Next, we visit Barmouth Mansion, their Victorian escape to the coast. Mansion in Barmouth. If Gatcombe Park is where the heart of their daily life beats, then Barmouth Mansion is where it exhales. Set against the sweeping coastline of Wales, this Victorian-era estate whispers of a slower rhythm, of sea breezes, candlelight dinners, and the distant cry of gulls circling above a silver horizon. But why would a royal couple with a sprawling country estate choose to add a seaside mansion to their world? The answer lies not in extravagance, but in escape. Purchased for nearly $5 million, the Barmouth property was built in the 19th century and has since been lovingly restored, not to dazzle, but to soothe. To enter it is to walk into another time, where elegance doesn't shout, it sighs. The home sits quietly on a charming, sought-after street, kissed by light at every angle. From the outside, it retains the bones of its Victorian lineage. Tall windows, steep gables, and wrought iron detailing that catches the rain like poetry. But inside, it's a masterclass in timeless refinement. The kitchen alone is a sanctuary, crafted with granite countertops, a butler's pantry, and handcrafted cabinetry that curves around a wide center island like a chef's embrace. It's the kind of place where you imagine Princess Anne quietly peeling apples for a crumble, or Timothy brewing tea as the tide rolls in beyond the windows. Step further in, and you'll find soaring ceilings, exposed mahogany woodwork, and large glass panels that frame the outside world like living art. A modern 5-zone heating system warms the space without intruding on its antique charm, and central air keeps the rooms cool even as summer spills in from the coast. But the crown jewel? The third floor, where the architecture begins to dream. A maze of cozy bedrooms, nooks for reading, spaces for grandchildren to play, and a magical turret room that feels like something from a childhood novel. This is where life slows and imagination takes the reins. The dining room opens not just to a meal, but to a mood. Transformed into a tranquil indoor garden, perfect for Sunday roasts or candlelit soirees with close friends. French doors lead out to a gazebo with seating for 12, ideal for summer dinners under the stars or royal conversations carried on the breeze. But perhaps what makes Barmouth Mansion so remarkable is how unroyal it feels. There are no bodyguards lining the gates, no media vans parked out front. Just the gentle crash of waves, the clink of china, and the laughter of two people who've chosen this life deliberately. A life not of appearances, but of anchoring. You have to wonder, when they walk these creaking hallways, do Anne and Timothy think of all they've chosen to leave behind? The scrutiny, the schedules, the hierarchy. Or do they simply enjoy the silence? This is more than a retreat. It's a recalibration. A space where title becomes secondary and identity is distilled down to two things they've always cherished: simplicity and privacy. But neither Gatcombe nor Barmouth would be possible without one crucial element: the quiet strength of financial stability. So how much exactly is this low-key royal duo really worth? Let's take a closer look at their quiet fortune. They don't flaunt it. You'll never see Princess Anne with a diamond-studded clutch or Sir Timothy Laurence stepping out of a gold-plated car. But don't be fooled by the muddy boots and unassuming coats. Beneath the modest surface lies a quiet, formidable wealth. Together, Princess Anne and Sir Timothy are estimated to have a combined net worth of around $20 million. Not lavish by royal standards, perhaps, but rich in independence, and built, bit by bit, on years of service, duty, and financial prudence. So where does it all come from? For Anne, her role as a working royal may not come with the glamour of tiaras and TV specials, but it does provide a secure stream of support. While she does not receive a salary in the traditional sense, she's long benefited from a sovereign grant allocation, tied to her official engagements, more than 500 per year, many of which go unnoticed by the press. But Anne is no passive recipient. She's a landowner, too. From inherited royal property to personal investments, Anne's portfolio includes Gatcombe Park, a gift from the Queen that she owns outright, and other holdings that have matured in value with time. Then there's Barmouth Mansion, a newer addition acquired privately with careful planning, not flash headlines. As for Sir Timothy, his financial path is grounded in service and strategy. A high-ranking naval officer, Laurence retired as a vice admiral, with a distinguished 35-year career that earned him honors, pensions, and respect across the Commonwealth. Following his retirement, he didn't fade into leisure. Instead, he transitioned to roles in property management, heritage preservation, and strategic leadership within UK government and charitable organizations, each accompanied by modest but meaningful compensation. There are no endorsement deals, no royal merchandise, no Instagram partnerships, just real work behind the scenes. Their fortune isn't built on visibility. It's built on values. And perhaps that's why it feels different. Because for Anne and Timothy, wealth was never the goal. Freedom was. The freedom to live at Gatcombe, to escape to Barmouth, to support the causes they care about, to be left alone and still do so much good. But how exactly do they use this wealth for others? Next, we uncover the depth of their generosity and why philanthropy may just be the most valuable currency they've ever held. Philanthropy. Not every royal couple leaves a legacy through crowns and ceremonies. Some do it through consistency, through showing up again and again when no cameras are around. That's exactly how Princess Anne and Sir Timothy Laurence have approached philanthropy. Not as a performance, but as purpose. Let's begin with Timothy. After decades navigating naval diplomacy, Sir Timothy didn't slip quietly into retirement. Instead, he charted a new course, into service of a different kind. In 2023, he was appointed patron of the International Maritime Rescue Federation, IMRF, an organization focused on saving lives at sea. For a man who spent his life on the water, this wasn't just symbolic, it was deeply personal. Timothy has often spoken about the risks faced by sailors, rescue workers, and seafarers in remote regions. Under his quiet stewardship, the IMRF has expanded awareness and resources for maritime emergencies across the globe. But his impact doesn't stop at the shore. Timothy has held leadership roles in heritage preservation, urban regeneration, and property conservation, often in areas overlooked by flashier projects. He's also a patron of the Windsor Leadership Trust, helping guide future leaders in public service, healthcare, and education. And with Never Such Innocence, a charity using art, poetry, and music to help young people process the impact of conflict, Timothy lends his calm, steady presence to nurture healing through creativity. Notably, he once served with the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, RNLI, one of the UK's oldest and most revered rescue organizations. Even now, he's known to attend events, speak to volunteers, and quietly raise funds. No fuss, no headlines, just commitment. And then, of course, there's Princess Anne, a royal whose philanthropy is not just widespread, it's legendary. She holds honorary roles with over 300 organizations across healthcare, disability rights, animal welfare, education, and international development. But her impact isn't measured in titles. It's measured in time, in presence, in decades of showing up. She founded the Princess Royals Trust for Carers, now known as Carers Trust, to support those who dedicate their lives to looking after others. She's been patron of Riding for the Disabled, RDA, since 1971, personally involved in events, therapy programs, and fundraising. Through this, she merges her love for horses with her devotion to inclusion, helping children and adults with physical and mental disabilities find joy and strength in movement. Her work with Save the Children spans over 50 years. She has traveled to war zones, refugee camps, drought-stricken villages, often away from media attention. In 1990, she was even nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless global advocacy. She supports TransAid, improving transport systems in developing regions to ensure access to healthcare and education. With the Not Forgotten Association, she helps veterans overcome isolation through events and rehabilitation. And through organizations like St. John Ambulance and St. Andrew's First Aid, she's improved emergency care across the UK. What's remarkable isn't just the scale of her work, it's the personal investment. Anne doesn't just lend her name, she visits, listens, works. At charity forums, she facilitates collaboration between groups who'd never otherwise meet. On international visits, she champions forgotten causes in overlooked corners of the world. In Uganda, 2022, she visited Save the Children projects, clinics for the visually impaired, and health centers in rural communities, reminding the world that compassion knows no borders. And through it all, Timothy is often just a few steps behind. Not leading the march, but never leaving her side. Because for them, philanthropy isn't a phase, it's a lifestyle. It's the through line of their marriage, their service, their legacy. In a world that often mistakes silence for absence, Anne and Timothy show us that the most powerful acts are the ones done without applause. But what does a personal life look like when so much of it is spent in service to others? Next, we step inside their private world of horses, dogs, and rare moments of everyday peace. Personal life. So what does a typical day look like for a princess and a vice admiral? When the press has gone home and the spotlight is off. At Gatcombe Park, the answer is refreshingly simple. Princess Anne begins many mornings not in makeup chairs or high-level meetings, but on horseback, riding through dewy fields as the sun slices through the mist. Her bond with horses isn't ceremonial, it's personal. She still trains, still rides, still cares for them like she did in her teenage years. Sir Timothy, ever the quiet counterpart, starts his day with a walk through the estate's gardens, often accompanied by their loyal Labradors and Terriers. He checks the grounds, he reads the papers, he fixes things that need no announcement but matter all the same. They don't live in separate palaces or hold elaborate court. They share meals in a cozy kitchen surrounded by wooden beams and decades of memories. They host family barbecues where grandchildren chase dogs and muddy boots line the back door. On weekends without official engagements, Anne enjoys time in her private study, writing letters by hand. Timothy prefers the library, where books on naval history sit alongside worn copies of gardening journals. They watch documentaries, not tabloids. They sip tea, not champagne. And when they travel, rarely, it's often to Scotland or the Welsh coast, not exotic private islands. Their marriage, now more than 30 years strong, is a quiet defiance of royal norms. No drama, no spectacle, just consistency. They are rarely photographed together, but always aligned. No need for grand gestures, only steadfast presence. In a world that often confuses visibility with value, Anne and Timothy have found peace in being unseen. But just because they've chosen a quieter lane in royal life doesn't mean their story lacks depth. If anything, it proves this. Sometimes the most extraordinary lives are the ones lived far from the camera flash. Now, as we begin to step back from the stables, the stone walls, and the warm light spilling from Gatcombe's windows, one final reflection remains. When the world thinks of royalty, it often imagines gold-lined halls, glittering crowns, and balcony waves to a sea of Union Jacks. But what if real royalty isn't in the spectacle? What if it's in the silence? In a muddy boot by the back door? In a hand that still holds the reins every morning? In a partnership that doesn't need cameras to feel real? That's what Princess Anne and Sir Timothy Laurence have quietly built over the last 3 decades. Not a fairy tale, but a life of deliberate balance. Between duty and personal space, between titles and true self, between the ceremonial world and the one behind closed gates. Gatcombe Park and Barmouth Mansion are more than just royal properties. They are reflections of a couple that has chosen authenticity over attention. She could have demanded palaces. He could have stepped into politics or celebrity. But instead, they chose a life where dogs roam freely, horses gallop beyond the window, and the people around them know them not as symbols, but as Anne and Timothy. There is something profoundly powerful about choosing peace in a world of performance, something quietly rebellious in saying no to grandeur, and yes to gardening, handwritten letters, and tending to the same land year after year. Their story isn't loud, it isn't viral, but it's lasting. And in the whirlwind of modern royalty, where headlines often overpower heritage, that might just be the most radical thing of all. So the next time you picture a royal lifestyle, imagine not the crown, but the countryside, not the pageantry, but the partnership. Because sometimes the most regal kind of life is the one no one's watching. Enjoyed this quiet glimpse behind the royal gates? Let us know in the comments what surprised you most about Anne and Timothy's life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because more untold stories, hidden estates, and royal reflections are just a click away. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and stay just a little bit royal.